Welcome to the second day of the two-part session, The Future of HVAC is Healthy Homes. I'm Larry Zarker. With me is Kevin Kennedy and Joe Medosh, and our contact information is below. Today's session is entitled, Why You Should Be Teaching the Healthy Housing Principles, and we will cover 4 of the 8 Keep It principles. Yesterday's part 1 session was entitled, Learn How to Make Your Students Leaders in the Industry. If you missed the session, I encourage you to go back and watch it. In today's session, we will cover why healthy homes matter and focus on keep it contaminant-free, safe, comfortable, and maintained.
So as you may have picked up from the first session, that we are focusing on the Healthy Housing Principle Reference Guide. This reference guide is based upon the 8 Keep It principles. Keep it clean, dry, pest-free, contaminant-free, safe, ventilated, comfortable, and maintained. All of these are well vetted throughout the book and a great source and information about that, as well as there's an online resource that goes along and complements that. As you can imagine, all of the resources that keep changing daily, monthly, every year could not be put into a book without actually becoming outdated by the time it was printed. So here we actually have a great resource that's online that you can access anytime, and here's the links to that. So today we're going to focus on 4 of the 8 Keep It principles: contaminant-free, safe, keep it comfortable, and keep it maintained. And a reminder that the previous session included keep it clean, keep it dry, keep it pest-free, and keep it ventilated.
So as we think about the healthy home principles and how they might apply for your students and for families, it's important to understand that all people, most of the people you know, are likely to have a chronic health problem when they are older. And they're not going to manage that health problem at the hospital or at a clinic or a doctor's office. They're going to manage their health problems in their home. Then their home plays a vital part in that management. And if we think of that along with the concept of a home as a system, it's a system designed for people to occupy. So we have to be thinking about the potential health impact of that home. Now, there are 2 parts to that. There's one that is the home itself and the components it's made of, the system, the mechanical systems that support it, part of your work, but also the daily behaviors and activities and routines of people in the occupancy of their home and how that can potentially affect the indoor environment of that home. At the same time, many of the clients that your students have unique health problems and challenges that mean they're going to be maybe sensitive to the kinds of systems and how those systems maintain the comfort and indoor air of that home. And that's more true now than ever because 95% of our time is spent indoors, and because of COVID, that's indoors at our homes. People are working from home. Their kids are using the home as a school. That's where they spend all their time. So it's vitally important that that home is maintained and operated in a way that is conducive to good health. An important document that is really kind of a guiding principle for the idea of healthy housing was developed and published more than 10 years ago by the Surgeon General, and it is this call to action to promote healthy homes. And in that call to action, the Surgeon General at the time adopted this definition for what a healthy home is. Healthy housing is designed, constructed, maintained, and rehabilitated in a manner that is conducive to good occupant health. Wouldn't it be great if that were true, that if you moved into a home, it actually made you healthier? Well, that is certainly one of our goals through the healthy housing principles. If they are effectively applied, homes should be healthy environments for people to live in. It's important to understand that link between a house and its operation and maintenance is directly connected to our health through different mechanisms through the physical mechanisms of the home, the physical components, the chemicals that might be making up that home or that are used inside the home and maintaining the home, potential biological exposures, and new science is showing us there's all sorts of unique biological interactions that might be going on in homes that are related to our own biological system. And more importantly than ever is the psychological impact. There's clearly a mental health impact of a poor home, and research to show a association between dampness in homes and our mental health because of how much time we spend indoors.
There is a lot of references that have been well documented besides the one from 2009 from the Surgeon General. There are agencies from EPA and DOE that have gone back and looked at many of the weatherization groups that are out there across the country, because they're in more homes than probably any other contractor as a group, and documented what they've actually been doing in the house that are simply weatherization upgrades that are dealing with HVAC upgrades and tune-ups, reducing the infiltration in terms of air sealing, and improving thermal impact and thermal health. All those things have been shown and proven to have a large benefit to the health of the occupants. Every one of these documents goes into in-depth, many of them are over 100 pages and more, into the studies that they have found. Here's an example from one from E for the Future, Occupant Health Benefits of Residential Energy Efficiency. And if you start over on the left and work your way across, you can see that insulation and air sealing, which does benefit the HVAC system, but the next one is actually the HVAC system and ventilation and cooking appliances, which all come into play in the roles of what you're working with your students. And you can see that they're actually referring to that they help reduce particulates, moisture, pollutants, all those things are in the role of your students. And then if you follow it over, they talk about the health symptoms that have been documented to be reduced. And then all together, it means that there's more opportunity for your occupants to do more when all these things are done correct. And there's documented evidence here. Here's one that comes directly from these two documents and how that actually plays between those. There's a busy slide. I like this slide a lot because I get to read off a bunch of stuff that's been documented. So the one thing is what have been reduced: gas, particulates, less medications are being used, dampness, mold are all been reduced. There's actually a risk of cancer that's being reduced when you're actually doing these basic tune-ups, including the heating system. Improvements are general health, upper and lower respiratory, blood pressure is being reduced. These are some significant impacts on occupants when we're doing just basic. These are not overhaul remodels. These are just basic things to make sure the home is operating at its most efficient. Better quality of life is the bottom line when your systems are working correctly. The weatherization group has also done a great job of documenting their success, which includes heating tune-ups that go along with the house and better filtration. So $1 invested in these homes is returning almost $3 in health benefits. And you can see that there's an enormous amount of benefits that have been accumulated from children missing days of school and more money in people's pockets because they have less issues dealing with their health in their homes.
A recent survey by Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies found that many households, especially in the age groups of 25 to 34 and 35 to 44, had concerns with the health impacts of their home. So, what were they concerned about? The number one concern by far was indoor air quality, followed by pests, water, and safety and comfort from the structure itself. Health symptoms were a major driver in consumer interest in making changes to their home. The top-ranked decisions to take action based on symptoms led consumers to consider upgraded ventilation systems, changing air filters, room darkening shades, and mold removal. Note that contractors were more influential than medical professionals in influencing decision-making. See the yellow bars compared to the gray. The red bars represent the influence of the internet information on their decision-making. The incidence of asthma is growing in the US. Look at the darkest states in this slide, showing that nearly 10% of the population of youth under the age of 17 have asthma, and these numbers are growing.
It's important to understand that asthma is considered an environmental disease. What we understand is that people who are sensitized to a particular contaminant in the environment, when they breathe it in, their immune system reacts. And that reaction is a result of exposure to something that is commonly called an environmental trigger. So looking at this map, think about the number of people. If 10% of the population of a state has this chronic disease, that's a huge portion of the population. People living in homes that we all service and advise them about, that want that advice to make careful decisions about how to improve their home and reduce its potential impact on a chronic disease like asthma. And the costs are staggering. This slide shows the direct costs and the indirect costs combined together are $56 billion a year. The direct costs in the United States are associated with hospital stays, doctor visits, medication use. The indirect costs are associated with missing work or missing school, other additional costs around the home and trying to address the issues associated with managing this disease. The average cost per person for asthma is $3,200 a year, astounding the impact on our society. And the primary triggers for asthma that we know about, remember, this is a disease that's associated strongly with allergy and allergic reactions, but not for necessarily all people who have asthma, but for a majority. So it's these environmental triggers that people react to. And these are common things like pollens and smoke is another one, different kinds of smoke, but it's also different kinds of allergens that are associated with these biological organisms. And these things can build up in an indoor environment, and they're often associated with exposure to the settled dust inside the home. And it's been increasing, as Larry said, continually over the last 40 years, the number of people that have this chronic environmental disease. But amazingly, we know from the research that clean indoor air is as important as the medications that a patient might use in helping to maintain or reduce the impact of the environment on their disease. If we can control the environment, if we know what a patient's allergies are or what their triggers are, if we can identify those and reduce exposure, which is usually in the home because people spend 90% of their time there, we can significantly reduce the healthcare costs associated with asthma. And there are numerous studies to show this to be the case. This particular report is from the American Academy of Pediatrics. So it's an important report about the impact of good indoor environments. Unfortunately, because of COVID, people, as I have said, are now sheltering in place, and they're in their home all the time now. They're not leaving to go to work or go to school. So that means homeowners and renters and landlords, property managers are all looking at specific ways, smart ways to invest in their home to improve or maintain good air quality. Larry pointed to that important Harvard study that looked at trends in consumers' decision making related to healthy home interventions, specifically how are they going to spend their dollars in the home. And now we know because of COVID, they're even more focused on those improvements, and they're thinking about the indoor air, and they're thinking about how they can better maintain their HVAC systems, heating and cooling systems, as well as ways to make the house more comfortable and to keep the overall sound inside quieter, because that's where they now work, learn, and play. There's important new guidance from EPA. We've given you the link here. New guidance related to HVAC systems and how we can use them and operate them in a way to help us manage potential risks associated with SARS-CoV-2. That's the virus that causes COVID-19. And here are some of the summary points from that guidance, including increasing the air circulation, using your HVAC system to better manage humidity indoors, to, in some cases, increase moisture availability, to better manage indoor air particulate, increasing filter efficiency, and potentially using the fan in a continuous mode in order to more effectively remove particles from the air. Studies have shown that in most homes, the air handling system is actually only on about 20% of the time. So if we want to increase the amount of time it's on to improve routine air circulation and filtration, that's one of the recommendations from EPA now for managing COVID-19. So we want to take a short break at this time to let you know about a new training reference guide and certificate available from BPI. It's called the Healthy Housing Principles Reference Guide. This is a new guide that we're going to be talking about today that's available, and you'll hear more information about that. There's also a certificate of knowledge that someone can obtain by taking an exam that's related to the reference guide. The guide covers the 8 healthy home principles that we will discuss today, and there's special pricing for any of you HVAC professionals and instructors who would like to adopt these principles and the training information for your classes and students.
The healthy housing principle is a complement to the existing building science principles that BPI has had out for about 8 years. This may be something you're already using in your classroom, and if not, you want to maybe use this in combination with the healthy housing principles. This one is really based upon some of the building science fundamentals like transfer of heat, air, and moisture, and the 4 Ps: pressure, pathway, pollutant, and people. It does an awesome job of actually including and explaining some of the diagnostics that go along with weatherization and other conditions you may want to do in the house. So fantastic book. Also, of course, there are some discounts for you who are the viewer. So you want to reach out to us at the end. We've got links to how to do this.
And for nearly 3 decades, BPI has provided professional certifications to technicians who upgrade the performance of homes. As you can see, the heating and AC heat pump professional certifications directly relate to HVAC technicians. In 2012, we added 4 certifications with support from DOE and NREL for the Low-Income Weatherization Assistance Program. So why are contaminants a concern for HVAC technicians? Aren't they just there to fix the HVAC system? Well, what if contaminants are spreading throughout the house through the HVAC system? Shouldn't they inform their customers? These terms and concepts could help them build trust with their customers.
The reference guide is full of a variety of different types of contaminants. In fact, you're probably picking up now during the second video that everything is not cut and dry as to, well, this is only clean or this is only a contaminant or only ventilated. There's a lot of crossover. The intention of the simple terms was designed so that the homeowner could understand these in a way and they could be related from the contractor themselves. So as you can see the list of contaminants here, and you go over to the right, you can see that they actually show up in different parts of the reference guide. So some of the ones we'll mention here are clearly in contaminant free, but other ones may show up in other areas because they actually align closer to these other principles. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the home, and many of these things are mitigated or controlled or reduced with your heating and cooling system. You've heard the concept that EPA says that indoor air quality is 2 to 5 times worse than outside. Well, what we're really not doing is because EPA does not regulate indoor air is all the conditions that are inside the air. The reason that the indoor air is so much worse isn't just because there's outside air is bad. It's because our indoor air has a lot of issues, a lot of contaminants and poorly ventilated systems. So when you see all the things that are around you right now, if you're at home watching this, or what your home or your environment has, there's an enormous amount of moisture and odors or potential pet issues. Even just you, your homeowner, your skin cells and other stuff that are actually impacting your house. So these are just normal things that are there that we really don't regulate on any level unless you're going to do a great job of maintaining the systems and maintaining how well the home is kept through all the keep it principles. Smoke is smoke is smoke. In fact, this year alone, I think more people were aware of the wildfire conditions that normally happen on the West Coast, but were happening much more frequently, even in Colorado and other places. People on the East Coast were actually having impacts from the wildfires that are happening in California. That's an amazing impact that's actually going all the way across the country from one part of the state to the other, one part of the country to the other. So tobacco smoke, we clearly are aware of some of these conditions, but the e-cigarette, these vape pens are now becoming the next potential epidemic for a variety of kids that are out there. So these things are why you want to have a well tight home and well ventilated and have other things that are trying to combat some of these conditions that are in your home and or are outside your house. We have a lot of these kind of chemicals and stuff in our homes all over the place. Hopefully most of these are in your garage, and your garage is well air sealed between the house and the garage. And some people are using things like air fresheners to try to combat the actual odors that they're giving off here, which are also another VOC. So volatile organic compounds are just so common in most of the things, not just in the house or the building materials, but mostly the things that we're bringing into those and the coatings that we're putting on furniture and carpets. All these things really are having an impact that's noticeable because our homes are become much more airtight.
So by utilizing the information that is in the Healthy Housing Reference Guide, when you teach your students, you're going to teach them important concepts about all of the keep it principles. And with contaminant free, it's one of those important concepts about all of the possible contaminants in the home, but also the common health effects associated with many of those contaminants. So here you're just seeing a short summary of some of those potential health effects associated with volatile organic compounds. And as Joe alluded to, they come from so many different sources. It's very hard to understand what those possible sources are, but it ends up being distributed by the systems. So the concept of keep it ventilated is critical to better management of contaminants within the home, along with some of the other keep it principles. Many of them overlap and interrelate in how they manage the total indoor environment and the indoor air and help reduce potential health effects like these that are shown here. So the concept of contaminant free is fundamentally about avoiding the use of hazardous materials in the first place. So when your students read the reference guide, one of the nice things about the guide is it provides some information about third-party programs that certify products to try to minimize the types of hazardous materials that might be used every day in a home, not just as part of the components of the home, whether it's part of the furniture or the carpeting or the paint, but also the kinds of products that might be used in the daily cleaning and operation of the home. And then it's important to understand that if these contaminants build up in a home over time and the air handler is on a regular basis, it ends up distributing the contaminants, the settled dust, the chemicals, the skin cells, the then associated biological things, all through the home, all through the air handling system, and here in this case, on the actual coil itself. So it depends on the filtration system. It depends on how often the system is tuned and service. And it isn't just simply about maintenance. It's about the health impact if you don't maintain it. So this becomes a critical component of maintaining a healthy home. So this is another example of where all those possible sources of contaminants are. So it really helps to educate your students about what all these possible sources are within a home and how they can be advocating to their clients exactly what can be done, to reduce these potential contaminants, as well as techniques that can be done using mechanical systems to reduce the buildup of contaminants, to improve ventilation, to make sure exhaust systems are working properly. All of those strategies work together along with the products that might be brought into the home, avoiding certain products. All of it works together in order to reduce the potential of risk to expose to these contaminants. So healthy homes is very much a comprehensive, holistic approach to managing the home. And your students can be one of those important advocates to their clients.
You know the phrase, if you see something, say something. That is especially true of safety concerns in a house. Pointing out the potential for fire or a child's access to chemicals under the kitchen sink are the kinds of communications that build trust with customers. Your students are going to need to know these terms.
So here's some information from the National Safety Council about the common causes of home injury deaths. Such a tragedy that people die in their home because of injuries that are preventable. We know how to prevent the potential risk of injury death from some of these things. When you think about it, the idea that people can be poisoned at in their own home or death by falling in their home is such a tragedy. So there are many really important and effective strategies that your students could be advocating to their clients and customers about in order to minimize this potential impact in homes. An important concept for you and for the students to understand is that accidents are not preventable. Accidents happen. That's why they're called accidents. But the injury that could occur from an accident is preventable. And that's what keeping it safe is all about. It's understanding the strategies for keeping a home safe by having those interventions in place, simple safety products that prevent injury when an accident does occur, or maybe when a system fails. Every home should have a carbon monoxide alarm in case there's some aspect of the home system that might have failed that's led to the buildup of carbon monoxide. So keep it safe is a vitally important strategy that your students should know and learn. There are a host of products around a home that are associated with poisonings. And it can be everything from prescription medications to home cleaning agents and solvents and things that might be used for home improvement and renovation, to personal care products, to over-the-counter medications. All of these things have to be maintained and stored away safely out of young children's reach. So it's a simple educational process, but it's such an important one. And what a great way for your future HVAC professionals to be advocating to the clients they serve strategies for maintaining and keeping a safe home.
All homes should have smoke and carbon monoxide alarms on each level of the house. You should help your students learn why low-level CO monitors are important. Also, trips and falls are a huge preventable source of injuries. Medicare spends over $30 billion a year on injuries from fall, and that's just with seniors. These are hazards your students can help prevent and provide as a service to their customers.
Some of the things that are directly related to the HVAC industry is combustion safety and carbon monoxide risk. This is where BPI established itself many, many years ago. In fact, most utility companies across the country used only BPI certified contractors to make sure that the existing homes had health and safety concerns were well done. Even if you're air sealing a home or adding insulation, these kind of tests were required to be done in order to make sure that they didn't make a situation worse in a home. So this is the kind of training I'm sure that you may be doing all the time, but I think it's worth noting that these are some of the most important tests that go along with the house. And what's not here are other things that could cause combustion safety, like fireplaces or even the connectivity to the garage or stoves. All of the things in the house are some of the greatest risks that people just kind of look over or don't understand in their own home. There is no smell or odor that comes along with something that could kill you in the middle of the night.
Now for another promotional message. We encourage you to fold the Healthy Housing Principles Reference Guide and Certificate of Knowledge exam into your HVAC curriculum. In order to do this, there is a special offer today.
So we're offering for you today for HVAC's excellent participants and particular instructors a special Healthy Housing Principles Train the Trainer session. We will cover these important topics through using a Zoom platform. We'll go over the Healthy Housing Reference Guide. You'll get a code for the exam book. You'll get access to a folder full of images and PowerPoint slides and other things that you can use for teaching the class. There's a model curriculum available for your use, and the development of a live learning network where you'll get access to technical questions and the ability to ask technical questions for the next year as part of the program.
Kevin and I have been doing Train the Trainers for probably 5, 6 years now on these and similar topics. And you can see that we've been doing this across the country. And we used to be able to do them in person, and we hope to someday be able to bring that back. Currently, it'll be a Zoom Train the Trainer, and I'm sure you're used to working in that kind of network as you watch a video right now. So here's the special offer to make sure you understand some of the details. So there is a free reference guide that's included in the price. You get a free exam. You get the Learning Network annual fee, which means we all get together once a month to talk about what you or some of your students are asking about, and the actual training itself is a $500 value. All that's $800 for the amazing offer of just $300. So $300 gets you this training and gets you all of these resources, including some of the other ones which were online access to all the images and some of the content. This is a turnkey offer. When you are finished with this, you'll be able to integrate this into your existing curriculum however you see fit, and you'll understand how to present the material. We think it's an exciting offer. To learn more about it, give us an email. Send an email to hhlearningnetwork@gmail.com. Again, hhlearningnetwork@gmail.com. All of these resources will be repeated at the end, so you have access at the end of the video. Thanks again.
Keep it comfortable. This is, of course, the most important keep it for HVAC contractors. Uncontrolled hot and cold can occur in extreme conditions, which can be life-threatening. But it is common that parts of the house can be sticky and clammy when other parts are comfortably cool in the summer and vice versa in winter. Understanding pressure and thermal boundaries are just two of the most important terms in keep it comfortable. Ensuring that the home is not too hot or not too cold is one of the top reasons why consumers depend on the HVAC trade.
It's important to understand the relationship of the person to the home that they occupy. And this is a relatively new healthy housing keep it principle, but it's an important one because human comfort is one of the main health impacts of living in a home. And to understand the impact of the home on a person's comfort, we can't think about just one thing. We have to think about many things. We have to think about humidity and airflow and circulation and speed in the home. What kind of clothes a person is wearing. What is the thermal transfer within that house? How much insulation might there be? What is the metabolic rate of that person? Because that is their own thermostat, and how quickly they might warm up or get too hot. All of that relates to their own ability to maintain thermal control, and how that thermal control is maintained in the home becomes essential to making the home healthy for them. A part of maintaining that comfort is how much the house just simply leaks air. If the house is too leaky, then a lot of that energy invested in keeping the house cool or keeping it heated is lost just simply through exfiltration, which we learned about yesterday. Is just that air being lost out of the building itself. So the more we can have an air sealed home, the better we can control the indoor air and maintain the comfort. And in some cases, once you've done effective air sealing and insulation, likely you can use a much smaller, more efficient system to maintain the same home. So it has an added benefit of creating opportunities for significant energy efficiency. Your students will learn from the Healthy Housing Principle Guide that it's a pretty simple process. Air sealing is a simple process, but it's important to do it early on in the construction, or to do it as part of renovation or part of energy or weatherization work. That you're specifically looking at ways to seal all the possible points of air transfer through the framing system, through the internal structures of the home, and that doing that has very specific benefits that reduce the potential for outside air coming in that carries pollutants, the movement of air between spaces, reducing the overall movement of indoor air pollutants, and gives you better control of air circulation and distribution through the home. If you think about it, the without air sealing, the insulation itself now has all the outside air passing right through the insulation. It pretty much ruins the effective insulation quality, its ability to maintain thermal control, but it also means that the insulation acts like a filter, and that's what you see in this example here. They're holding up some of the fiberglass insulation and showing over a gap where air has passed directly through the insulation over time. It serves just like a furnace filter, and it ends up pulling all the particles and debris and pollutants out of the air. That ends up actually directly corrupting the filtration efficiency, the insulation quality, and the thermal comfort of the home.
One of the things I'm sure you're going to be working with your students on is how to do a manual J, which is right sizing the equipment and other manual components that go along with that. But the manual J has one component that's called infiltration, and it's trying to determine how much you think the home leaks. And those are usually guessed, or you could use a blower door to determine that. But infiltration can sometimes be 20, 30, 40% or more of the size of the equipment. And that's where we're going to try and focus on, between actually having a good thermal boundary that's aligned with your air barrier. Some of the things you think about as air is though it's okay to have air leakage. But the reality is that air leakage also allows for a variety of other things to happen in the house. So you can think of them as a infiltration penalty, but it's more of a contaminant pathway or an exposure pathway. So these are a variety of things that are out there. Think of your home as a sponge. We're understanding more about how things get into the house and how they don't leave very well because they want to kind of stick to what's inside the house. The carpeting, the furniture, and even the walls are now able to absorb a lot of this stuff. So all these things are finding their way in through infiltration and other pathways that are not well sealed and actually compromising comfort and your system's capacity. So think about a way to make sure that you're integrating a holistic approach with the house as being a great air barrier, thermally controlled system. And you'll find out that you'll have less callbacks as one of the features that's there. Most people don't think of water as kind of something that could be contaminated until you realize that it could rot your walls in your house. So there is a moisture that moves through the materials naturally. Okay, that's referred to as diffusion. But if you have openings that now you have air leakage or infiltration, there's a huge amount of moisture that moves through that. So here's an example from a northern heating or average heating system. This is 3 to 4 months. The amount of air that's actually going to move through a material, a piece of drywall, versus actually having a small 1-inch hole. And you can imagine how many 1-inch holes you actually have in there. So we're creating an illustration to kind of show what that looks like from one side that has no holes and one side that has a very small 1-inch hole. The amount of moisture that moves through both is significant, but the one has air leakage actually adds up to be an enormous amount of moisture that moves through that system. And imagine there's 40 to 50 pieces of drywall or openings like that can actually be a significant amount of moisture that your systems must compensate for because they're causing comfort and other issues and durability on the home. So that's a lot of moisture to be addressing in the house. Let's talk about it in another way and let's visualize how that actually comes in. So most attics are open to the outside, so they're moving through the systems, and as they actually find out that your vented attic actually has openings from penetrations from plumbing and electrical, and if we follow the green path of the yucky stuff from outside and the gaps on the drywall, then what happens is now as we look around, we can see these as the illustration that we had previous. So these gaps where the drywall comes to the top plates and the holes for electrical or plumbing add up to be a lot of area. So your goal is you're looking for something like this, where those penetrations are sealed, and then you can either put the insulation back or even add more insulation, and now it's aligned with the air barrier itself. So you can see as we twist around the house that things from the attic can actually move down the wall and actually find their way all the way across to the first floor and even second floor. So right now we're actually in the bathroom where you can see things are moving down the wall. They're being pulled through by exhaust fans that pull that across. Here we actually have been able to see air come all the way down to the first floor from the attic. because we have an exhaust fan that got turned on and we have leakage in the drywall itself from fixtures or even from outside. So you can see where these contaminants and these other conditions, even just think of it as a thermal loss is being pulled into the house and what your systems have to do to compensate for this. So not only is it from the attic area, but anywhere where you have any penetrations that were not well sealed, commonly along the plates around the house, you can see these kind of gaps where air is now able to move in and bringing with it whatever is in the wall or in those dirty areas. This also shows up in the bottom, whether it's a crawl space or a basement. These kind of areas that are not well sealed actually show up as being a condition that every homeowner has to deal with. These are a variety of things that you as an HVAC contractor may not address directly, but you want to make sure that the homeowner is doing it so your systems actually can work as efficient as possible. The duct system is in your wheelhouse and something you want to make sure you're controlling. So even if you test the duct system, people don't realize that leaky ducts have an impact on infiltration and exfiltration. So we talk about supply leakage. That's the supply system throughout the house. When it leaks, it actually is sucking on the home itself, because you think about the air handler moving so much air as the motor as a fixed system. And if it's losing part of that as a supply leakage, it's going to make up for it some other place. It's going to bring air in from outside as best it can to create a balanced system in terms of how the motor moves that amount of air. No matter what, it's going to move 2000 CFM. So that supply leakage can actually do things like pull air right down from a vent from a hot water tank as a way to cause backdrafting. The opposite is in return. So my return leakage is kind of giving us a positive aspect on the house. And you can see where that may be a slight good thing to have, but it depends on the conditions where you're at. So if you were in a northern climate, this could actually be impacting the moisture moving through the walls and causing damage on the outside. All things have some type of positive or potential negative impact. So it's best to make sure that you have zero as much as possible duct leakage throughout the house. Duct testing is a fundamental requirement for many of the things that BPI recommends.
We cannot emphasize enough the importance of keep it maintained. Without regular maintenance, houses and their systems fall into disrepair, which can lead to rotting and water intrusion, system failures, and invasions by pests, not to mention high energy bills. And the longer that maintenance is deferred, the more expensive the repairs will be. It is important that your students design systems so that the occupant can help maintain things like changing filters regularly. Also, the HVAC technician is the only contractor invited into the home on a regular basis to ensure that their systems are properly maintained.
So in the chapter on Keep It Maintained, there's a lot of information about how to maintain a wide array of materials and systems in the home, and provides lots of information about best practices. But it also provides some important information about common hazards found in homes that are so common in homes and so difficult to remove that they really almost have to be maintained in place, at least to be cost effective. And we'll mention just a couple of those here in our discussion. The first is lead and lead-based paint. Lead-based paint is found in some 40% of the US housing stock, but it's particularly in homes that were built before 1980, and even more so in homes built before 1940. You can see from here that we provide a discussion about all the different types of sources of lead, so your students can learn all about where the potential sources are, and they can educate and advocate to their clients about potential health impacts of lead. They also have to be thinking about that if they work on any older homes where they're going to disturb any of the surfaces. They may make sure they are a certified renovation firm that practices lead safe work practices, and there's quite a bit of discussion about that in the guide. In particular, we're concerned about children who are under 6 years old. That is the primary concern for lead poisoning. And this slide just provides some basic information about where those kids might be living. We're more concerned a little bit about kids in urban areas versus rural. However, in rural areas, you have lots of older homes where lead risk is really prominent. And then we're more concerned about low-income homes versus middle-income homes because of the financial resources that a family has to address building-related hazards and maintenance. And as I said, about older homes. And then there's some other population factors that are important. So we're concerned specifically about the deterioration of lead-based paint, and where that occurs is at the friction points. So that's going to be where doors open and close and where windows are opened and closed. So the process, the mechanical movement of those windows and doors creates grinding points where the paint is peeling and chipping and then ground into a fine dust, and that fine dust settles onto floors and sills and onto surfaces where young children come into direct contact with those surfaces and then ultimately end up ingesting the paint, and that's when it becomes a significant hazard and poisons young children. There's excellent information from our federal agencies regarding the hazards associated with lead. This is just one example from the EPA. This Renovate Right book provides families with actual guidance on what they can do if they do move into a home that likely has lead hazards, what they might do if they're planning to renovate the home. It tells them important information they can use in their decision making about whether they want to do the work themselves or hire a firm that might follow lead safe work practice, just to make sure that when work is done to improve a home, that we minimize the potential impact of working on that home, and we don't want to poison anybody with something like lead.
Asbestos is one of the other ones that's incredibly common to find in the homes that your contractors will be servicing or working on. Asbestos was used as one of the most first miracle materials that was out there, even back from ancient Rome and ancient Egyptians were using this. And in the early part of the century, last century, it became something that was well used for wrapping ducts, insulating ducts. In so many ways, you can find this in lots of areas in the home. And it has a lot of conditions that actually you want to be cautious about in terms of how it's addressed and making sure your students understand when to recommend that it may be removed or corrected by the contractor, or sometimes it's okay to be left where it is as long as the conditions are right. Usually these are assessed by somebody who's trained in this condition and understands how to address that. These things can have long-term impacts from lung cancer, mesothelioma, and asbestosis. All those things are causing lung cancer or other issues because they've been inhaled. This is completely different from fiberglass. These types of fibers actually enter the lungs and can cause long-term issues, which lead to cancer for many people. So this is not something that will show up in a week, but something that's a long-term issue. Again, you want to make sure they're aware of and how to make sure they're taking precautions, wearing masks, appropriate PPE when they see this, and addressing this to the professionals and not leaving it up to the next guy to hope that it was done correctly. So these are just some of the examples where you may find this, from the ducts there in the bottom left to vermiculite, which is a type of insulation in the attic where you're going to find contractors are going to. There's a variety of duct wrap that actually has these kind of conditions, the type of siding that may be out there if you're putting penetrations through the house for ventilation, flooring if you're putting the openings for new registers. All these things have the potential risk of having asbestos. And if you're not sure, you're better off to just assume that it is. And if you need to, send it off to a lab to have it tested. But if you're going to cut any of this stuff or remove it or move it around, not only are you creating issues for yourself as an OSHA risk, but you're creating issues for the occupants themselves. This kind of stuff gets into the air. It takes a long time to settle. This is fine particle dust. So you want to make sure that you are working in a professional manner when you find something or have concerns about these types of homes.
Another important contaminant, along with lead and asbestos, that the reference guide describes is radon. Radon is a radioactive gas that's found naturally in soil. And when we cut through the rock layers, the subterranean levels, to build foundations for homes, we end up creating channels and pathways for that radon gas that's just in the soil gas to then infiltrate into the home, typically in below grade foundations, basements, crawl spaces, and those kind of areas. It's the second leading cause of lung cancer cancer after smoking, and the leading cause in lung cancer of lung cancer in non-smokers. So it's a major issue, and our exposure is primarily in the home and in the lower levels of homes. So it's really important that your students, if they see potential evidence of conditions that might be risky for radon, that they could make recommendations to the customers they serve. The best recommendation is simply that they might advocate to consumers that they test the home. It's a simple process. There's a low-cost test. You can even get them free, often from local county extension or other state agencies. There are some specific guidance that comes with the test for how to set up a house to do the test. And now, actually, on the market, there are some radon monitors that can be set up and allowed to be in place for a long period of time, ideally at least a week, if not more, and then looking at that average result off of that monitor. So there's lots of opportunities for your students to be educating their clients. And once those test results are back, or they get the information from the monitor after a couple of weeks, if the result is above 4 picocuries per liter, that's the guidance from the Environmental Protection Agencies, then that suggests that it would be better to put in a radon system to manage radon than to just live with the long-term exposure. Just like with asbestos, it's all about the long-term exposure and potential health impact. So yet another hazard that it would be important for your students to learn about and to be able to educate their clients about in order to maintain a safe and healthy home.
So we're going to introduce you to some HVAC contractors who have expanded the scope of their services to include healthy homes work. Building Doctors in Los Angeles actually has their technicians dressed in medical attire, and their vans are ambulances that have been refitted for their home assessment and retrofit tools, which sends a not so subtle message to customers that Building Doctors care about the health and safety of their customers.
Another great company is Total Home Performance in Maryland. And Total Home Performance started out as an energy efficiency company, a weatherization company, but now works with HVAC contractors to carefully assess the home. They also apply the healthy home principles in a systematic way and assess the home for likely health and safety issues and concerns, and then work with those contractors to specifically address the HVAC system, the other mechanical systems, and make recommendations for the whole home as far as strategies for renovating the home, for investing in the home to make it as healthy as it can be for their clients and customers.
Another contractor out in San Francisco is Eco Performance Builders. They also are taking the holistic approach of the house. They're focused on air sealing, improving the thermal boundary, and actually not just doing upgrade for heating and cooling, but also trying to reduce their energy load with focusing on all electric systems. They monitor their homes with the clients. They do a lot of consulting, and they do a great follow-up in keeping track of what's actually happening in their house with IAQ monitors. Another example we want to give you is the Minix. This is Rob Minnick. He's a third generation heating and cooling contractor. They've been doing this since probably the 30s or 40s. He was sweeping the rooms in the shop, and now owns and runs and moved his entire business to dealing with and working with a holistic approach, healthy homes outfit. So he went from HVAC to turning the curve and actually making sure that they are addressing anything that the contractor that can provide that the homeowner needs. They actually can do that. And one of the things we want to point out with these examples is that your students should know that many of the jobs opportunities that are out there may include this type of knowledge, may include many existing contractors are looking for creative minds to improve their business and give them more opportunity instead of doing a $3,000 to $5,000, $10,000 change out. What about doing a $15,000 or $30,000 home upgrade that actually has much more opportunities and allows more people in your industry to work more? So all these things are the future of heating and ventilation systems. And we hope that somehow all of this knowledge can get combined with your students. They may not grab everything, but they're going to grab something, even if it only allows them to make sure that their own home and their family and their extended family understand more about how to live healthy. All these things are part of our lives now and will be for the future.
We've now provided an initial discussion of the 8 Keep It principles and provided an argument for why your HVAC students need to carry this information with them as they enter their professional careers. The pandemic has changed the way in which we view our homes. In many respects, this may broaden the HVAC industry's ability to own the customer relationship by providing an environment that is comfortable, healthy, safe, durable, and energy efficiency. You can play a critical role in preparing your students for this future. In case you missed part 1 yesterday, here's what we covered. We provided an overview of the concept of healthy homes, discussed the 8 Keep It principles, and then focused in on 4 Keep It principles: clean, dry, pest-free, and ventilated. I encourage you to go back and watch that.
We also want to remind you, as we mentioned yesterday, that there's a wonderful website that BPI maintains for their Healthy Housing Principles resources. It concludes all these different links to key references that were used for the development of the presentations you've listened to, links to educational materials, to information about healthy housing conferences, information about important publications associated with healthy housing, as well as recordings of presentations and webinars. All of that available for you and for your students. It's available free, and it's a great opportunity for you to keep up with the latest information. It's updated regularly by BPI so that it has the latest information related to health and housing.
We want to do a reminder about the offer that we've got for anybody from HVAC Excellence to add to your curriculum and give you the knowledge you need to help provide this kind of content to your students. So again, all of this reference guide, the exam, the learning network, and the actual Train the Trainer course, $800 value for $300. So please send us an email at hhlearningnetwork@gmail.com if you want to learn more about that. And we gladly look forward to working with you in the future. Here's a review of some of the resources we provided throughout the day. So healthy building science principles, the reference guide, you can see the link there. Same with healthy housing principles reference guide is there. There's lots of presentations at the HHP link, as well as send us an email if you want to learn more about the learning network and the offer we provided. Here's our contact information, so you can reach out to us at any time. So I'm Joe Medosh. Thanks again.
I'm Kevin Kennedy. Thank you for listening.
And I'm Larry Zarker. Thank you so much for participating.
So together we are the 3 sages, and we look forward to helping you and your students in the future. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.